Friends, one of the most common things which I hear from working executives is that when I'm speaking to my friends or when I'm speaking to my family members, I'm able to communicate very well. But when I communicate in the workplace, in a presentation, in a board meeting, or as part of a client review, I'm not able to articulate my thoughts very clearly. I'm not happy with my speaking performance in these situations. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this word speaking performance or this word performance. Now, this is where the problem starts when you start treating communication as a performance. Now, friends, communication is a very simple exercise where you articulate your thoughts very clearly to the person in front of you or to the group in front of you. But when you start treating communication as a performance, as some kind of a show, that's when you complicate things for yourself. Now, I want to talk about three things out here about this performance mindset that people have for communication and how to kind of come over it. So, the first point is what happens when you have this performance mindset? When you treat communication as a performance, when you do that, number one is that you try to be perfect. Okay, you don't want to make any mistakes, you're shy of making mistakes, you want to be perfect. Number two, you try and act like somebody else. You are not at your natural behavior. You try and behave like somebody else. You try and copy somebody else's personality. And number three, you treat every conversation like a TED talk or a Josh talk, where you will speak for about 15 to 18 minutes or whatever that time limit is. And after that, people should give you a standing ovation or clap or give you lots of appreciation that, wow, very well done. Right? Now, this is what happens when you have a performance mindset. You are not a movie actor, but you think that you're a movie actor who has to do his dialogue delivery the moment somebody says action. And that's where the entire problem starts happening when you treat communication like a performance mindset. Now, when you have a performance mindset, what happens? What happens is that you tend to get sweaty palms. You tend to forget your lines because you've memorized them and you have come to your presentation to deliver them. You're not able to structure your thoughts very clearly. The moment you forget one line, you start fumbling. And people can then make out that, there's a problem with the confidence of this person. And all because you are treating communication as some sort of a performance, right? You want appreciation from people, that people should say, wow, very good, right? So this is the problem which happens when you start treating communications as some sort of a performance. Now, how do you get rid of the performance mindset? How do you tackle this performance mindset for communication? For this, let's go to point number 2. So in point number 2, I want to talk about how to get rid of this performance mindset. I talked to you about the damages it can cause if you have a performance mindset for communication. Now within this, I'd like to talk about 2 points. Point number 1 is that treat every communication like a natural flowing conversation. Don't treat it like some stage show where there is a cup or a medal waiting for you. If you do that, again, you will fall into the trap of the performance mindset, right? You will have performance anxiety and then you will mess up the entire communication process. So treat every communication like natural conversation, right? Now, I know that is easier said than done because you need to develop other skills for a natural conversation. You need to have language skills. You need to have a storytelling ability, right? You need to have all that. But the broader point which I want to convey out here is that don't treat communication, every piece of communication, whether in the boardroom, whether in a presentation, whether in a client review, like some sort of a performance, right? Treat it as a conversation, like a natural flowing conversation. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is don't operate out of memory. Don't try and memorize everything. Now, if you look at this video which I'm making right now, what I have done is I have thought of some key points, right? And I'm elaborating on those particular key points. When I'm making longer videos, what I do is I note down those points in a piece of paper. And you may have seen this in my earlier videos. I note down those points on a piece of paper. I look at those points and then I tell a story around that particular point. And that is what you need to do. You need to develop the art of storytelling on every point. And that's a separate skill you need to develop. But again, the broader point which I'm trying to convey out here is then don't try and memorize everything. Because if you memorize everything, you forget one sentence, and in your effort to try and remember that sentence, you mess up the entire your entire communication process. By that time, the third sentence or the fourth sentence should have been spoken, and you're still fumbling with the second sentence. You have messed up the entire communication process, and people can make out that there is a problem with the confidence of this person, right? So these are the 2 points which I talked about on how to get rid of the performance mindset. Let's move on to point number 3. Point number 3, I would like to talk about the approach you should take to improve your workplace communication. In point number 1, you've understood the dangers of a performance mindset. Point number 2, I talked about how to overcome the performance mindset. And in this point number 3 is the approach you should take to improve your workplace communication. Now, again, in this point, I would like to talk about 2 or 3 subpoints. The first point is that understand the nature of speaking. Now, friends, speaking is a very natural process. It comes in a very unconscious manner, right? So you should try and improve your habit of speaking and not your knowledge of speaking. Let me repeat that for you. That's very important. You should try and improve your habit of speaking and not your knowledge of speaking. Now, let us say that you've gone through this wonderful course on communication skills, and then you ask yourself, okay, I have been through all the lessons. I have completed all the lessons. Will I be a good speaker after that? Well, the answer is no, because you're full of knowledge. This particular course has told you what you need to be a good communicator, but now you need to get into the habit of speaking. Now you need to take platforms, go to platforms where you practice this particular skills. So that's point number 1, that you should treat communication as a habit and not as some knowledge gathering exercise. Yes, knowledge is important, but if you really want to be a good communicator, you have to treat speaking as a habit, right? So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is try and understand your gaps. Try and understand your communication challenges. Friends, somebody might have an accent problem. Maybe he comes from a particular region of the country and he has a severe regional influence. Maybe this person is weak in grammar. He's making mistakes in the articles, the and the, or the verbs, or the past and the present and the whatnot. Maybe somebody is using too many filler words. Actually, right? Or maybe somebody has a problem with all these 3. I have come across people who have a problem with all these 3. Right? So for the first step is that identify what exactly is your problem. Maybe you have only one problem. Maybe you have 2 problems, right? So, and for this, you will need a coach, right? I have seen people that they have a particular communication challenge, but they don't believe that they have that challenge. For example, there's a student I'm working on who tends to speak very fast, but he's never realized that he's speaking fast. That could also be one of the challenge. Right? So identify point number 2, which I'm trying to say is identify that gap which you have. Okay. Point number 3, once you have identified that particular gap, be it filler words, be it accent, be it your grammar, be it your speed, once you have identified that particular challenge, try and eliminate one challenge at a time. Don't jump into eliminating the challenges altogether. Right? Because if you try and do that, what happens is that people tend to get frustrated and then they give up. I have seen many people who try to solve all these problems at one go. They want me to kind of take the class for all the gaps which they have, and then they get frustrated and they don't come back. I insist that you take one challenge at a time and then eliminate those challenges. So that's what you should do. Point number 3, eliminate one gap at a time. Within those 2 or 3 challenges, the coach could tell you what exactly is your main challenge, which is maybe 60% or 70%, and concentrate on that. So you could concentrate on that first and then come to the others. Okay. So eliminate your challenges one at a time. And the last point which I want to mention out here is that take opportunities to speak up. Maybe join a Toastmasters club. Maybe join a public speaking class near your house. In your workplace itself, tell your supervisor that I would like to talk in this particular client review. I would like to run this particular meeting. And most of the managers are open to it, right? So take those opportunities within your workplace because the more you get into the habit of speaking, you have the knowledge, the more you get into the habit of speaking, you're going to be a better communicator, right? So friends, let me summarize what I have said in this video. Number 1, I talked to you about the dangers of a performance mindset. What all can happen if you treat communication as a performance, some sort of a stage show. Point number 2, I talked about how you should overcome this particular performance mindset. And I talked about a couple of points in that. And in point number 3 is that the steps you should take to improve your workplace communication. Right? I talked about the habit. You should treat communication as a habit. Identify your gaps, eliminate one gap at a time, and take maximum opportunities to speak up. So friends, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. You have found value in the video, right? If you have, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to my channel, and please do pass on this video to others who want to improve their communication skills. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one.